If I asked you to picture, the voice of a generation,
Right.
like the definitive book that captures the modern millennial experience, you would probably imagine this sprawling, screaming manifesto.
Oh, absolutely. Like some heavy, epic narrative trying to tackle every single global event.
Right. Every political movement, the whole technological collapse happening right now. But what if the defining text of our era is actually just a story about two Irish teenagers awkwardly texting each other?
Which is pretty wild when you actually step back and think about it.
It really is. So welcome to your personalized deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack this massive cultural and literary phenomenon, the novel Normal People by Sally Rooney.
And it really is a phenomenon. I mean, it completely upended the literary world. But the way we're going to explore it today is, well, it's uniquely meta.
Yeah, that's the twist with today's stack of sources. We aren't actually looking at the text of the novel itself.
Not a single page of the actual story.
Exactly. Instead, we are going to decode this whole phenomenon entirely through its exterior footprint. So we're looking at its publication history, stretching from its 2018 UK debut by Faber and Faber
Right.
all the way to the 2020 Vintage Canada edition. And more importantly, we have this fascinatingly diverse stack of critical reviews from major literary voices.
Because sometimes looking at the reaction is actually the best way to understand the art itself.
Oh, totally.
And to set the mood for you, our listener, just try to imagine the visual backdrop for our conversation today. Picture that we are sitting in this cozy, warmly lit, independent bookstore.
Oh, I love that.
Right, dust motes are kind of dancing in the sunlight, filtering through the front window. And right on the main table in front of us is this massive, towering display of Normal People.
Yeah.
You can see that striking cover design by Elena Giavaldi. It features these very minimalist, almost haunting green and blue face illustrations by Molly Bounce.
It's such an iconic cover.
It is. It looks modern, it looks impeccably clean, and it gives absolutely nothing away about the intense psychological storm that's waiting inside those pages.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the very first thing that jumps out from this stack of reviews is a massive, almost comical contradiction.
Oh, the disconnect between the plot and the praise.
Yes.
Okay.
Because before we can understand why critics claim this defines a whole generation, we have to look at what the book is literally about on the surface.
Right, the actual narrative framework.
Yeah, and if you read the review from Entertainment Weekly, they describe the core of the book as deceptively simple. They distill it down to, quote, a boy, a girl, the messy dance between them.
Wow.
Right. And oh, the Oprah magazine echoes that exact same thing, noting it basically focuses on an on-again, off-again relationship between two Irish teens.
Which, I mean, it sounds incredibly conventional when you isolate those plot descriptions like that.
Completely.
It sounds like a formula we have seen 1,000 times in young adult fiction.
And that is exactly my sticking point. It's a boy meets girl teenage romance. But then you turn to a publication like Elle magazine, and they are aggressively labeling this a defining generational work.
They really push that narrative.
They do. Elle claims Rooney tackles issues with 19th century wit, and they suggest the millennial generation would happily accept her as its spokesperson.
A huge title to give someone.
Right, and I really have to push back on this juxtaposition. Like, if the plot is just a conventional teenage romance, why are these major, serious critics treating it like some sort of sociological textbook?
Yeah.
Isn't millennial spokesperson an incredibly unfair, just heavy burden to place on a simple love story?
Well, you're right to be skeptical, for sure. If it were just a simple love story, that label would be completely absurd. But what's fascinating here is that the romance itself is essentially a Trojan horse.
A Trojan horse?
Yeah.
Wait, so you're saying the whole will they, won't they romance is just the hollow wooden horse used to get readers through the gates? Okay, but then the actual soldiers hiding inside are, what, social commentary?
Exactly that. Because a traditional romance focuses entirely on the internal mechanics of the couple, right?
Yeah.
Like, do they like each other? Will they overcome a simple misunderstanding and finally get together?
Right, the usual tropes.
But Rooney is using this highly conventional, deeply familiar framework to smuggle in this ruthless exploration of modern neuroses.
Ah, okay.
Look at how Cian Cain of The Guardian points it out in our sources. She notes that Rooney's characters are, quote, often overeducated, neurotic, slightly too self-aware.
Oof. That quote stings a little bit.
It does.
Slightly too self-aware. I feel like a lot of people are going to hear that and feel a little attacked.
It hits very close to home for a lot of people. And that actually ties directly into Elle's mention of the 19th century wit.
I wanted to ask about that, actually, because what does 19th century wit even mean in the context of, modern teenagers with smartphones?
Well, think of Jane Austen. Austen wrote about drawing rooms, country dances, polite courtship. On the surface, it's just romance.
Hmm.
But she used those polite manners to deliver this biting, laser-sharp critique of class, money, and societal expectations in the 19th century.
Oh, I see.
Rooney is doing the exact same thing for our current era. She is just trading the country dance for a text message thread.
That makes so much sense.
The critics are calling her the voice of a generation because she perfectly captures a demographic that has, all the therapy vocabulary, all the university education, and all the self-awareness in the world.
Yeah, they know exactly what's wrong with them.
Exactly. And yet they're still completely paralyzed when it comes to simply connecting with another human being.
They overthink themselves into corners. Like, they are battling dragons or evil stepmothers. They are battling their own hyper-analyzed insecurities.
That's exactly it.
Okay, so they are paralyzed by their own neuroses. But neuroses don't just spring out of nowhere in a vacuum.
No, they don't.
So if these characters are overanalyzing everything, what external pressures are forcing them to do that? What else is hiding inside that Trojan horse?
That is the crucial question, and it takes us straight into the invisible gravity of the novel. To understand those external pressures, we really need to break down the review from Time magazine.
Okay, what did they say?
They argue that the novel showcases a profound understanding of power dynamics. In this modern age, romance isn't just about love or physical attraction or shared interests.
Right.
Time notes that modern romances are defined by class tensions, by the anxieties brought on by social media, and by public reckonings with power and abuse.
Wow. It is so jarring to hear it framed that way because absolutely none of those things sound romantic at all.
No, they aren't romantic in the slightest.
Yeah.
But they are undeniably present in modern relationships. And The Guardian actually expands on this concept brilliantly.
What's their take?
They argue that the novel traps a very specific moment in time, capturing what they call a new sense of collective precariousness.
Okay, let's decode that term. Collective precariousness.
Yeah.
Is that just the feeling that the ground beneath your feet could give way at any second?
Yes. It is the defining anxiety of the modern era. I mean, think about it. It's the gig economy. It's the housing crisis.
Yeah.
It's political instability.
Right.
It is the lingering dread that no matter how hard you work or how educated you are always just one piece of bad news away from ruin.
I want to visualize this because it completely changes how we view a standard relationship drama.
It really does.
It's almost like, imagine trying to have a private, deeply intimate conversation while standing on a tiny boat in the middle of a chaotic, stormy ocean.
Oh, that's a great image.
Right. These two characters, they think they are just talking to each other on this boat. They think their miscommunications are entirely personal. But the massive waves of the economy, the unseen currents of class disparity, this deafening roar of social media expectation, it's so loud and chaotic that it entirely dictates how they are being tossed around and how they hear each other, even if they refuse to look at the water.
That is a phenomenal analogy.
Yeah.
The environment they are trying to love each other in is tainted with all these larger societal pressures. And Stephanie Nolan, writing in the Globe and Mail, explicitly points this out in our sources.
Oh, she does.
Yeah, she describes the book as a conventional heterosexual romance on one level and a long meditation on submission, desire, gender, and self-hatred on another.
So the macro is literally infecting the micro.
Exactly that. Because we all tend to view our relationships in a vacuum. Like, for you listening, you probably think that argument you had over doing the dishes last night was just about the dishes.
Spoilers, it wasn't about the dishes.
Right. What Rooney's work does, and what these critics are highlighting, is invite you to consider how macroeconomic or political anxieties might be sitting right there on your couch with you. If you secretly feel financially inferior because of that modern gig economy struggle we talked about, you might interpret a totally innocent question from your partner about budgeting as this devastating passive-aggressive attack on your worth.
Oh, wow. So suddenly an argument about grocery bills is actually an explosive argument about class and self-hatred.
Yes.
You just can't separate the intimate from the systemic. The stress of simply surviving in a precarious world is going to seep into how you handle a romantic conflict.
It has to.
It amplifies your need for control or, your tendency towards submission, which makes absolute sense conceptually.
It does.
But I really have to stop and marvel at the sheer mechanics of this. To make heavy, potentially depressing themes like class disparity, self-hatred, and collective precariousness actually digestible.
It's not easy.
No, that requires a staggering level of skill from a writer. If you aren't careful, a book about those topics just becomes a dry, boring academic paper.
A lecture, basically.
Exactly. So we have to shift from what Rooney is saying to how she's actually managing to say it. And the praise in this stack of reviews for her actual craft is wild.
It's almost universal.
It really is. Maureen Corrigan from NPR's Fresh Air has my absolute favorite quote in this entire deep dive.
Let's hear it.
She said, quote, "Sally Rooney could write a novel about bath mats and I'd still read it."
That is incredibly high praise,
Yeah.
especially coming from a critic as seasoned and notoriously tough as Maureen Corrigan.
I know. I was actually laughing earlier thinking about what a Sally Rooney novel about bath mats would even look like.
Oh, I can imagine.
It would probably just be 300 pages of intense, agonizing internal monologue about buying the wrong shade of beige and
Yeah.
what that says about your moral failings.
Definitely. A deep dive into the ethics of
Yeah.
polyester.
Exactly. But Corrigan's point is clear, right? The subject matter is almost irrelevant because the execution is flawless. Vanity Fair echoes this too, praising her simplicity of form and economy of language, noting it serves as this incredibly powerful, streamlined vehicle for those big ideas we just discussed.
Streamlined is the perfect word for it.
And the Irish Times points out something that feels like a literal magic trick. They say her characters talk and talk and talk with sentences so clear and light, it almost seems as if she's not doing anything at all.
The illusion of effortlessness. It is perhaps the hardest thing for any artist to achieve.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because that simplicity is entirely deceiving.
How so?
It makes me think of high-end architectural minimalism. Think about a massive, ornate Victorian mansion. You have decorative trim everywhere, heavy drapes, complex crown molding, chaotic wallpaper. Right.
Very busy. Lots to look at.
Exactly. If there is a structural flaw in the wall or a mistake in the carpentry, you just cover it up with more decoration. No one will ever notice.
Right, you can hide your mistakes.
But Rooney's writing style is like a modern, minimalist glass and steel house.
Oh, I see where you're going.
There are no decorative flourishes. There are no massive, distracting adjectives or wildly melodramatic plot twists to hide behind.
Oh.
Because it is so stripped down, every single structural beam, every single piece of dialogue has to be absolutely mathematically perfect.
Because it's completely exposed.
Exactly. If one sentence is slightly off balance, the whole thing collapses in on itself because there is literally nowhere for the writer to hide.
I love that architectural metaphor, and it holds up beautifully against the critical consensus in our sources. That effortlessness the Irish Times mentioned is a highly constructed illusion engineered by an absolute master of the craft.
Yeah.
Let's look at the Globe and Mail review again. They actually compare Rooney's craft to the literary giant Alice Munro.
Wow. For those who might not know, being compared to Alice Munro is basically the literary equivalent of being compared to Michael Jordan. She was a Nobel laureate who specialized in the quiet, intimate details of daily life, making small-town interactions feel as epic and dramatic as a Greek tragedy.
Exactly. To place a young writer in Munro's echelon is a massive statement, and the Globe and Mail review specifically notes how Rooney builds, quote, terrible suspense out of social blunders and small betrayals.
Terrible suspense. That is such a specific, evocative phrase. It implies a kind of creeping dread.
It is vital to understanding the mechanics of why millions of people literally could not put this book down. Because the suspense in normal people doesn't come from external action.
Right.
It doesn't come from a murder mystery, a ticking bomb, or some high-stakes bank heist. The entire thriller aspect of this novel comes purely from the agonizing, stomach-dropping suspense of whether a character will say the right thing in a quiet room.
That is so true.
Right, it's the terror of watching a character commit a tiny, seemingly insignificant social blunder out of pride or fear, knowing it is going to slowly unravel their entire life.
It's the modern thriller. It's the absolute terror of sending a vulnerable text message and watching those three little typing dots appear and then disappear and then appear again.
The worst feeling.
It is. It's the anxiety of knowing that a single misunderstood word, filtered through all those neuroses and class tensions we talked about, can permanently alter the trajectory of a relationship.
Exactly.
Which means we've successfully established the heavy, invisible themes, and we've mapped out the masterful minimalist style of the prose.
Right.
Now we have to land on the actual human element. We need to explore the emotional impact this unique combination has on the reader, and why this story resonated so deeply across the globe.
The emotional resonance is perhaps the most striking part of this entire critical reception.
Hmm?
Because, a book can be intellectually brilliant and a book can be structurally perfect like your glass and steel house,
Yeah.
but it can still leave the reader feeling entirely cold and detached.
Admiring it, but not feeling it.
Exactly.
Mm.
And that is definitively not what happened with normal people.
Not even close. The visceral reactions from these critics are intense. Chatelaine magazine describes the book as, quote, heady, self-destructive, and as tender as an exposed nerve.
An exposed nerve.
Right. That implies a raw, almost unbearable pain, but also this hypersensitivity to the world around you.
It is a very vivid description.
And then you have the incredible Irish author Anne Enright, who is a literary powerhouse herself. She notes that Rooney's mastery of tone is so complete and subtle that, quote, we almost fail to notice as the darkness trickles in and the light starts to fade. Enright actually admits she found the book difficult to disconnect from.
When an author of Anne Enright's caliber openly states she found a book difficult to disconnect from, you really have to pay attention.
Oh, absolutely.
It speaks volumes about the psychological grip the narrative exerts. You start out thinking you are reading a breezy, familiar romance, and before you realize what is happening, you are submerged in the depths of these characters' isolation and depression.
And out of that darkness comes this beautiful, very strange paradox that the Boston Globe Review highlights. They point out that the book's complex, often frustrating characters ultimately, quote, make us feel safe in our strangeness and less alone.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this right here is the ultimate beautiful irony of the novel and the key to its generational appeal.
Okay, unpack that.
The characters in this book are deeply, sometimes infuriatingly flawed.
Very true.
They're wildly self-destructive, they're overly neurotic, and they hurt each other constantly through miscommunication and those small betrayals we talked about. They are not heroes.
No, they are definitely not heroes.
And yet reading an intimate account of their failures provides immense, profound comfort to the audience. The title itself, Normal People, is a provocation.
Oh, I like that.
It's a dare to the reader. As a review from the Irish Times notes, the book makes anyone look at their own family dynamics, their own chaotic life, or their own troubled relationship and ask the terrifying question, is this how normal people behave?
And I think the answer the book provides, and the core reason it exploded into a global phenomenon, is a resounding, deeply comforting yes.
Yes.
This messy, painful, overanalyzed, clumsy dance, how normal people behave.
Exactly.
I mean, think about how incredibly relieving that must be for a modern reader. We are currently living in a world entirely populated by curated, perfectly filtered lives online.
Everyone's highlight reel.
Right. You scroll through social media and everyone looks like they have it completely figured out. They have the perfect relationship, the perfect career, the perfect emotional boundaries.
It's exhausting.
It is. So to be handed an exposed nerve of a book that shows highly intelligent people acting terribly, acting neurotically, and making massive avoidable mistakes simply because of their own internalized self-hatred, it feels incredibly validating. It aggressively strips away the Instagram filter of modern romance.
It does exactly that. It tells the reader that their own small betrayals, their own awkward, agonizing moments of miscommunication are not uniquely broken aspects of their psychology.
Right.
They aren't signs that you are somehow defective. They are simply the standard operating procedure for humanity. That is exactly why it makes us feel safe in our strangeness. By showing us the absolute messiness of human connection, it normalizes our own private struggles.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive by questioning if a simple love story between two teenagers could actually bear the weight of being called the voice of a generation.
Big question.
Yeah, and looking at the overwhelming evidence from this diverse stack of critical sources, the answer seems to be that Normal People isn't just a romance. It is a meticulously crafted, structurally flawless mirror.
A mirror, yeah.
It's reflecting our modern macroeconomic anxieties, the crushing invisible weight of class dynamics, and the deep, universal desire to be truly understood by just one other person in a world that feels increasingly precarious.
I think that is an excellent comprehensive summary of the critical consensus. And as we always believe here, knowledge is most valuable when it is understood and applied to your own life. So, as you move through your week, perhaps take a lesson from the critical reception of Sally Rooney's work. The next time you find yourself in the middle of an argument over something trivial, try to look at the social blunders and the inevitable miscommunications in your own life, not as profound, unfixable personal failures.
Right. Take a step back.
Try to see them as just part of the messy, unavoidable dance of being human. If the brilliant, highly educated characters in a literary masterpiece can stumble blindly through their relationships, you can certainly allow yourself the grace to stumble through yours.
That is a fantastic, grounded takeaway. Just give yourself some grace.
Exactly.
But before we go, I want to leave you with a final, lingering question to ponder on your own, something that builds on everything we've uncovered today.
I love these.
We talked at length about how this novel perfectly captures a generation that C and Kane identified as overeducated, neurotic, and slightly too self-aware.
We did.
So, does it suggest that all our modern self-awareness, all our prestigious education, and all our sophisticated psychological vocabulary is actually making us worse at simply connecting with one another?
Oh, that's heavy.
Right. Like if we can perfectly articulate our traumas but still can't manage to tell someone we love them without self-sabotaging,
Yeah.
are we analyzing ourselves entirely out of the ability to experience true, uncalculated intimacy?
That is a truly fascinating question to leave them with.
Thank you so much for joining us on this personalized deep dive into the cultural phenomenon of normal people. Until the next stack of sources arrives, keep questioning, keep learning, and we will catch you next time.